The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has urged the World Bank President David Malpass to use his good office to suspend any disbursement of the $800 million loan to the Federal Govt of Nigeria and to request the incoming administration to provide satisfactory explanations for the loan. For more on these headlines, we're going to, of course, invite Arise Business Analyst Chika Mbonu to discuss, get his thoughts on them as well. Chika, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
How are you today? How's the weekend?
Well, thank you, sir. Hope you had a wonderful weekend as well. New week. Lots to look forward to.
Countdown to May 29.
Oh, yes. And subsidy removal or not. What do you make of this NECA and their call?
Let me put everything in perspective, just for the benefit for our viewers.
Yeah.
And everything revolves on government revenue.
Yes.
The big picture there is Nigeria. Nations are measured on the basis on revenue calculation, the basis of the revenue ratio to the GDP ratio.
Yeah.
Nigerian revenue ratio is about 7%. Now, if you posit that against some other nations, like Ghana, I think Ghana is 15%. Most other nations, South Africa, between 15 and 20%.
Yes.
So Nigeria, GDP to revenue to GDP ratio is very low. Fact one. So there's a need, therefore, for the government to expand its revenue base.
Yes.
And the initiative out there, therefore, is how do you expand the earning from taxation, which is the main source of revenue of government. Now, one, do you increase tax or do you increase the tax base?
Right.
Now, a lot of people have said increase the tax base because each time you increase taxation, and then the same nuclear 10% of people, companies, individuals that you're going to need to tax.
Yes.
Meanwhile, you're not expanding tax base and you're not plugging leakages in the tax process. Now, put that on something else, another layer on it.
Yeah.
Is the fact that tax planning, tax rates, duty rates, tariff rates are very important for investment decision making.
Yes.
And so it's usually very important that government, posit those rates on a long-term basis.
Okay.
For example, for Nigeria, the the fiscal policy measures we had and tax tariff rates were last done for 2022 to 24 to last up to 2024. Now the problem now is that one of the grouses of the NECA, is that the fact that this is 2023.
Yes.
The tariff regime that on which basis most of them are made financial projections, investment decisions, 2022 to 2024.
Yeah.
Midstream, you have gone ahead to what? Change them. Moved a lot of the rates from about 20% to some of them 100%. Introduce a green tax for single-use plastics. Yeah. And then introduce a telecommunication tax. All that towards expanding revenue base. What are the uses of tax? The first use of tax is what? Revenue enhancement for the government.
Yeah.
Tax can also be used to discourage or encourage particular initiatives of the government. For example, government can use lower tax as an incentive for investment or to discourage consumption for something like alcoholic beverages, tobacco, to increase the tax. So that's the situation that the NECA is saying the economy is down. We had a goalpost that was 2022 to 2024. Tariff regime, fiscal policy measures. In between, after first half, after playing football first half, second half says you have to play rugby. How does that work?
Yeah.
So now, still moving on the perspective of taxation. Tax rates are supposed to be fair.
Yes.
Because if they're not fair, what will happen is that they discourage investments.
Yeah.
They encourage smuggling.
Yes.
Now, those who are producing in Nigeria, they encourage smuggling because those who produce in Nigeria, their costs will be expensive, and those who will be bringing smuggling from outside, their own will be cheaper.
Yes.
Unemployment will be more, and so employment will be less if the tax is very high.
Yes.
And the other thing will happen is that remember I said the first motive is to expand revenue base. Now, if the tax is excessive, it becomes a burden on manufacturing companies.
Yes.
And then what happens is what? The production base will reduce. They will employ less. And that objective of what? Tax growth will not be achieved. Yeah. These are the things that the NECA has initiated and for the government. That is going to just kill the government. Even those in the value chain, those apart from manufacturing companies, all those providing services to manufacturing companies. For example, the logistics services of manufacturing companies are actually, given out to SMEs to provide trucks and whatever. And some of these trucks are using diesel that is like concrete and smoke and fumes everywhere. Now you're having green tax. You're having tax on imported vehicles and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So this will not work. So that's what NECA is saying. That if this government pushes it, and the other issue is that it's effective June 1. So they were giving little time to adjust their production. Tax is not something just come overnight and that, because remember I said it's an input into investment decisions and other actions taken by investors in arriving at the business. That's why they're protesting.
You think government will, do you think there's something new administration will take up? Because there's only 2 weeks left.
I mean, the argument is sound, because what I said, that even though the major objective is driving revenues up for the government, you have to balance it against what, after a time, if you keep driving revenues up, the production will do what? It will become expensive to produce. Those people will sack employees, so the people cannot, the tax you're chasing will do what? Reduce. So the government must balance it against the issue of chasing revenues up and discouraging production, and then increasing unemployment, encouraging fake goods, encouraging smuggling, and it's a balance in that. Somehow now it's like the single purpose is what? Driving revenue. Gotcha. And the NECA has been asking that involved in the process. He just went and brought out this initiative without talking to us.
Real quick, Chika, but a minute to go. Can the CBN fight inflation? I mean,
I've spoken about that a lot here, and I said that inflation, too much money putting too few goods. You have to balance the two sides, too few goods. If production moves up, you can balance out the money they have in the system. But if you're chasing inflation run down through only monetary policy, it never works, and that's what has been happening. Because look at the supply side. We talked about the issue of NECA now. Talked about security. Failure of supply chains, delay in clearance of goods from port, high foreign exchange, all this inundate the producers. And therefore, supply side is very weak and it's not growing. So you're drying up money in the system, drying up the money system, but the supply side is not cooperating. And that's why it has hung up there at 22.04. Now, if you posit that against the fact that the CBN objective, remember, is single-digit interest inflation rate within 6 to 8%. You will know how bad this is. The highest in 17 years history.
Lots of challenges ahead for them. Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu. Chika, thanks for talking to us about taxes and inflation. Appreciate your insights as always.